Buongiorno, sono Zsófia Veres, benvenuti. Spero ti piace mi film. This story takes us back to Fascist Italy, to about 70-80 years ago, where women were seen as the mothers of the nation, and given a role to raise the men who were sent to fight for their country. Surprisingly, the remains of these social, economic, and political associations with the image of women still shapes the systems that run this country. Casa delle Donne Castelfranco Veneto looks at the empowerment of women through a series of interdependent interventions to celebrate women's history through the unheard voice of the women writers who emerge in the city and in the country. The institution interlinks different inequalities through mutual constitution. The first semester looks at Castelfranco Veneto through the concept of a learning process, guiding one on an educational journey. The second semester investigates the potential professional opportunities the institution can provide to empower women and goes through social enabling platforms. Chapter 1. How did the image of women shape the women of their time? Casa delle Donne is an institution that spread across the whole country, addressing 4 different images of women: social, professional, political, and sexual. Looking at the writers that emerged in the cities where the institutions sit in, oppression, the debate of strength and weakness are commonly arising themes from these writings. For further information, please visit Chapter 8, which is a curated selection of these pieces. Chapter 2. How can the associations on women's image be interpreted through the city in which the institution sits in? Castelfranco Veneto, sitting in North Italy, has been developed as a walled town. The remains of the wall still distinguish the city into the inner and the outer city, which can be further divided into layers that are closely connected to the development of the city. Please visit Chapter 9 that illustrates the relationship between these. These boundaries can be divided into positive and negative ones according to the visual and physical boundaries that they are forming, using Kevin Lynch's 5 key elements of the city. The positive ones show starting points to reconnect the negative, fragmented elements of the city to make accessible and visual connections. Refer to Chapter 10 that demonstrates these boundaries and their potential connections. Chapter 3. How can the new image of the city become the new image of women? The reconnection of fragmented areas of Castelfranco Veneto shows a potential to form new images of the city, a new image which can be the new image of women. Therefore, the city is imagined as a series of interventions where monumentality serves as means of raising awareness through its transparency, and education allows for accessing information freely through permeability. The wall comes in the middle as a transition space by giving a new meaning to it. By the new use, the place that the wall defines, as Aldo Risto expressed, gets separated from its past and forms a memory. Inspired by the Obama's Presidential Center, the series of interventions can be explored as a learning process, each incorporating a different activity. In response to the visual and physical boundaries, transparency and permeability can be investigated through the concept of the fold that was introduced by Peter Eisenman in architecture. The fold looks at fragmented areas of the city to be rejoined through a continuous form. Based on this, the horizontal fold can be seen as a permeable form, acting as a cavern and as an affective machine. The vertical fold can be looked at as a transparent form and seen as an event and as a threshold. For further information, please visit Chapter 11 that researches these terms in relation to socio-spatial connectivity in cities. Chapter 4. How can the fold reconnect the negative boundary of the southwest greenery to the positive boundary of the river? The river, originally used as a defense, stayed as a key element of the city. Over time, it has been a platform for boating, however, this use has disappeared. The point 7 of the learning process proposes to revitalize this element of the city to reconnect the road, the pedestrian walkways, the buildings of the outer city, visually to the river, and provide physical access point to the greenery by creating a pavilion. For further information, please visit Chapter 12. The horizontal fold is explored through the change of topography, through the creation of a series of timber frames. The vertical fold looks at the connection between the gap in the wall and the bridge. This creates a series of frames, in which one becomes a projection, a frame that can be seen as either a door to pass through or a window to see through, a frame that evokes a new image of women to be made. Chapter 5. How can the series of interventions accommodate for the professional empowerment of women and girls? The series of interventions can be seen as a circular economy, where each newly established institution built on generations of women's work and achievement. These permit the creation of social learning processes, where the younger generations learn from the older ones, integrating social, sexual, political, and professional activities into the workings of the institution. Therefore, the first intervention becomes the directory, event space, and archive that accommodates for the leading and coordinating of all interventions and hosting many different events. The museum comes after, to celebrate the work of women writers through the eras that define the history of women in Italy. Through the feasibility study, the demographics of the city suggested the creation of social security groups of women connecting different generations to share experiences. Looking at the currently active writers' ages, where they are based, and the themes they explored, a variety of events that the institution can accommodate for was established. This was translated into a study on the number of women that can be employed to each individual institution, proposing diverse working hours to accommodate for various roles. For further information, please refer to Chapter 13. Point D. The museum comes as a key moment in the professional empowerment of women, accommodating for a workshop that renews the exhibition space each month, bringing a series of events to the museum for a weekend of each month. Each month, the exhibition brings in a new era with various women writers into learning processes for both the visitors and the makers of the institution. Chapter 6. How can the museum reconnect the negative boundary of the northwest greenery to the gate in the wall defined as a positive boundary? Looking at permeability, the gate in the wall is located in between two steep green belts without an accessible path leading from neither the inner nor the outer city. The creation of a path from the outer city would link the west access point through the bridge, the restaurant, and can provide the potential for the north area to be explored. The path in the inner city would provide a public space in the currently privately owned courtyard that are gated at 2 points, in the east and in the south. Observing the city through conceptual transparency, the layers of the city show that the gate is the only source of connection that needs to be preserved. Therefore, the west-east sightlines through the greenery, and the north-south sightlines from the pedestrian walkways, road, and the buildings of the outer city can vitalize the elements themselves. For further information, please visit Chapter 14. Therefore, to reconnect the area, the building needs to provide an access point to the gate and preserve existing sightlines. Chapter 7. How can the fold project new interpretations of the image of women and unfold the oppression of the past into one continuous form? Patrizia Vadiga, the most renowned active women writer of the city, has expressed the feeling of oppression through the element of water. Her poem of the Donne dei Dolori provokes to interpret the projection of flames to embrace weakness with the belief to be invisible and meaningless. Therefore, the walkway as an access point sits on top of the museum together before arriving, whereas the museum is hidden in the ground forming with the topography changes. For further information, please visit Chapter 15 that analyzes the poem. The permeable fold follows the topography level changes, defining 3 folds. The first, the transitional fold, is the starting point of the ramp. The second, the service fold, is a permeable form through the exhibition, adjoining the first in the middle, and the third, the servicing fold, accommodating for office and workshop space before joining the second. The transparent fold acts as a frame, accommodating for a series of activities of a learning process, where one always projects the following one. For further information, please visit Chapter 16. The fold is a cavern, allows for a permeable journey to educate one on women's history through the eyes of those unheard for centuries. In each individually designed frame, the fold acts as an event accommodating for a monthly changing exhibition space, workshop, reception and servicing space, and to reinterpret the image of women by each set one takes. In between each frame, the side lighting from above allows to strengthen the guidance of the cavern. Finally, 9 frames are joining together to evoke reinterpretations on the image of women through the fold as a threshold by forming half of a wave spirit into 2 activities. How did the fold provide possibilities for socio-spatial connectivity? The fold has been viewed as means to reconnect the negative boundaries of the city to the positive ones by reinterpreting new images of the city to become the new image of women. The 2 case studies show that the fold needs to be seen both spatially and as a meta-space to unfold possibilities for the people who use them. Therefore, there is a need for investigating both the folding of the built fabric and the unfolding where the people can move continuously. The process of this research can be traced back through my reflective journal that you can find on the shelf alongside my introduction video. I hope you will enjoy my portfolio that you will see next to my reflective journal. please make sure not to mix chapter 8 to 16. Thank you for your time and your careful attention. Hope to hear from you soon.